So in this video, we'll be continuing with algebra, focusing on factorising into single brackets. Now, before we get started on factorising expressions and using single brackets, it's important that we get a recap on some key vocabulary. Now, the word term in algebra is the number of things being added or subtracted. So here, if we have a look at this first term, so here we've got 2x plus 8, and you can see that we've got two things being added and subtracted. So therefore, we've got two terms. In this example here, I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 things being added and subtracted, so therefore I've got 4 terms. Now, the word factor is a number that divides into without leaving no remainder. So the important thing is it's not just a number that you can divide by, it's that key aspect of the fact that it has no remainder when you do actually eventually divide by it. And the word factorize, which is basically removing the highest common factor of all the terms in the expression and introducing brackets. So for example, here we've got 8 and 40. So what is the highest common factor of these two numbers? Well, that's going to be 8. 26 and 30, well, the highest number that goes into both 26 and 30 is going to be 2. And here when we have x and x squared, well, what's in terms of the letters, what letter they both got, we can divide both letters by, and that will be x. And here if we add pq plus tq, then obviously the common letter and the common factor we've got here is going to be q. So looking at the actual steps of how we actually factorize an expression. Now, although the method seems very complicated, these are types of questions that you need to really ask yourself, and it's actually a lot simpler than what's actually put into words in terms of the steps. Now, in terms of these methods, it's going to be different based on every single question, and some things may be applicable than others depending on the actual question. So when asked to factorize an expression, you need to ask yourself the following questions. So one, what does each term in the expression have? So do they both have numbers, and or do they both have the same letter? Now, if each term has a number, then what you want to do is you want to take out the highest common factor of these numbers, and that answer will go outside the bracket. Now, if each term has got a common letter, then this will go outside the bracket. And the key thing with high level questions, if you find that your common letter has powers, then what you want to do is take out the smallest power. Now, this is kind of contrary, and this is where a lot of students tend to make mistakes, because you always think, oh, I take the highest common factor from numbers. When it comes to letters, you want to take the smallest degree or the smallest power of the letter. So it's always something that you both definitely want to bear in mind. Now, these common factors will be outside the brackets, and then to find what goes inside, just simply ask yourself, what do I need to multiply what's outside the bracket to get the term in the original expression? And the answer will be what goes inside the bracket. Now, again, I've used brackets and inside and expressions quite a lot there, but hopefully when we go through some examples, I'll kind of translate what each of these 4 steps mean in its entirety. So let's go straight on to some questions. Now, in a question, it will generally specify for you to factorize fully. Now, the key word is this word fully. Now, sometimes you may factorize a question by taking out a common factor, but it won't be the highest common factor, or it might not be the highest power of the letter. So it's just something just to bear in mind, that sometimes you may get some marks but not full marks if you've not factorized and taken out the highest common factor of each of the terms. So from this, we've got 3x and we've got 9. So here I've got 2 terms. So I asked myself, what have they both got in common? Well, they've both got numbers. Okay, so then what number goes into both 3 and 9? Or I should say, what's the biggest number that goes into both 3 and 9? Well, the answer to that is going to be 3, because 3 appears in the 3 times table, also appears in the 9 times table. So they haven't got a common letter, so I'm just going to now open up a bracket. Now from this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of these little highlights of those numbers. So here I've got 3, but I want 3x. So what do you have to multiply? Now, the key thing here is you're always looking at multiplying. What do you need to multiply to get what outside the bracket to get what the original term is? So what times 3 gives you 3x? Well, that's going to be x. Then here I've got a minus, so I get a minus outside. And then what do I need to multiply 3 to get 9? And that's going to be 3. And there is my final answer. Now again, if I wanted to check, I could always expand the brackets by using my loop. So I've got 3 times x, which is 3x, minus, and then I've got 3 times 3, which is 9. And there is my final answer. And again, I've just checked. So this here is just my little checkpoint to make sure that I have the original question. So for question 2, let's go for a different colour. So here I've got two terms. I've got a number and a number in both, so I haven't got a common letter, but I've got a common number. So I've got to ask myself, what's the highest number that goes into both, or highest common factor I should say, that goes into both 15 and 25? And the answer to that is going to be 5. So then I ask myself, what do I need to multiply 5 to get, well, let's write it here. So what do I need to multiply 5 to get 15? Well, I need to get another 3, and I also then need an x, so I'm going to add an x there. And finally, what do I need to multiply 5 to get positive 25? Well, that's just going to be 5, and so my final answer is going to be 5, and then 3x plus 5 goes inside, and there is my final answer. So moving on to the next question, question 3. So again, I've got a number. Well, I've got two terms, and in each of them I've got a number. So I ask myself, okay, looking at the numbers, what is the biggest number that goes into both 16 and 24? Now I've got quite a few numbers I could choose. So I could choose 2, I could choose 4, and I could choose 8. Now in terms of these, you want to go for the biggest number. So biggest out of these three numbers, which is going to be 8. So if I just write down the question again. Now again, I'm going to take out the highest common factor, which is 8. So what do I have to multiply 8 to get 16? Well, that's going to be 2. Minus, and what do I need to multiply to get from 8 to 24? Well, that's going to be 3. And I also need a y, so I'll add a y inside the bracket and job done. So moving on to question 4. So again here, I've got two terms, and I ask myself, what have they both two terms got in common? Well, they both don't have a number, so that's not going to be an issue, but they both have the letter A. So this is what's going to go outside the bracket. So I then think to myself, I've got A, but I want AB, so what else do I need? Well, I need a B, and then I've got a plus, and I've got A, but I want 2A, so what do I need? I need a 2, and there is my final answer. Moving on to question 5. Now, with question 5, you can see I've got two terms, but both terms have got a number, and both terms have got a letter H. So therefore, looking at the numbers, I've got 9 and 12. So here, what's the biggest number that goes into 9 and 12? Well, that's going to be 3. And I've got a H in either of those two examples, terms just to say, so 3H is going to go outside the bracket. Now I've got 3H, but I want 9GH. Well, I don't know why I've written 3. Let's just get rid of that 3 and change that to a 9. So here I've got 3, but I want 9. So what do I have to multiply 3 to get 9? Well, I need a 3. I also need a G, but I've got a H and I want a H, so that's absolutely fine. So I can now move on to the next term, and again I'm adding because I've got a plus there. Now the next thing I then need is 21H. So to get from 3 to 21, well, I need to multiply by 7, and I've got 1H and I want 1H, so that's absolutely fine. So that there is my final answer. The final answer there would be 3H and then 3G plus 7 in brackets. Moving on to question 6, so let's go for a different colour. So here I've got 12x minus 16xy. So again, both of them have got numbers, so I've got 12 and 16. So I ask myself, what number goes into, what's the biggest number that goes into both 12 and 16? Well, I've got 2 and I've got 4. So 4 is going to be the one I'm going to choose. Now also looking at the letters, what have both terms got in respective to letters? Well, that's going to be they've both got x, so x goes along with the 4. So then I ask myself, what do I need to multiply 4x to get 12x? Well, I've got 4 and I want 12, so I need to multiply it by 3. I've got 1x and I want 1x, so that's absolutely fine. Now here I've got 4, but I want 16, so I need to multiply it by 4. I've got 1x and I've got 1x and I want 1x, so that's absolutely fine, but I do need this extra y. So I'll stick a y there, and there is my final answer. Moving on to the next one. Now here we're starting to incorporate powers. So here I've got numbers and I've got the letter x. Now for this I've got x squared and I've got x to the power 1. Now when you've got letters that appear the same and you've got powers, you always take out the smallest power. So here I'm going to take an x. Now in terms of the numbers, there isn't a number that goes into both 3 and 4 apart from 1, and we don't write 1 in algebra. So I can't take the numbers as a factor. So what I've got to do is I've got to take the letter as a factor. So I've got x. Now I've got x, but I want 3x squared. So what do I have to multiply x to get 3x squared? Well, I need a 3 and I need another x. Then I've got a minus. Now I want 4x, but I've only got 1x, so what do I need? I need a 4, and there is my final answer. With question 8, again, I've got AB and A squared, so no numbers, but I have got letters. What letter appears in both? It's going to be A. So what do I need to multiply A to get AB? Well, that's going to be a B. And what do I need to multiply A to get A squared? Well, I need another A, and so there is my final answer. Moving on to question 9. Now here we've got 3 terms. Now you need to make sure that whatever you take out as a common factor has to appear in all 3 of the terms, has to appear in all of the terms. So looking at the numbers, I've got 12, I've got 4, and I've got 8. So what numbers go into these 3 numbers? Well, I've got 1, 2, and 4. Now again, I'm going to go for 4. So 4 is going to go outside. And then looking at the letters, what letter appears in each of these 3 terms? Well, that's going to be T. And that's the smallest power of that I've got. So again, even though I've got t squared, I only want to take out a single t because that is the smallest power. Now again, I've got 4t, but I want 12t. So what do I need to multiply 4 to get 12? Well, I need a 3. I've got 1t and I want 1t, so that's absolutely fine. So I can move on to the next term. Now the next term is 4th. So I've got 4 and I want 4, so that's fine. I've got 1t and I only want 1t, so that's fine, but I need an extra h, so let's stick a h there. Then I've got minus 8t squared. Now I've got 4, but I want 8, so what do I need? I need another 2, because 4 times 2 gives me 8. Now I've got 1t, but I want t squared, so what do you have to times t to get t squared? Well, that's going to be t, and that there is my final answer. And then moving on to question 10. So here we've got numbers and we've got x's. So here looking at common factor between 35 and 5, well, that's going to be 5. And between x cubed and x4, which is the smallest power, that's going to be x cubed. So what I'm going to have outside is 5x cubed. Now here I've got 5x cubed, but I want 5x cubed. So what times 5 gives me 5? Well, that's going to be 1. I've got x cubed and I want x cubed, so that's absolutely fine. So move on to the next term. I've got 5, but I want 35, so I need to multiply it by 7. And I've got 3 x's, or x cubed, but I want x to the power 4, so how many more x's do I need? Well, I need 1 more, so that there is my final answer. And then finally moving on to question 11. Now this one's a little bit more complicated because we've got a lot more variables and numbers in each of our 3 terms. So looking at the numbers, I've got 6, 18, and 15. So what's the biggest number that goes into each of these 3 numbers? Well, that's going to be 3. Now looking at the letters, what letters have each of the 3 terms got? Well, they've all got a's. So I've got a squared in the first term, I've got a to the power 5 in the second term, and a cubed in my third term. So which of these 3 is the smallest power? Well, that's going to be a squared. Now looking at the other letters, well, they've all got c's. So I've got c cubed, I've got c squared, and I've got c to the power of 6. So again, I go for the smallest option, which is c squared. Now I can't use b because there is no b in the second term, so that's why I can't use it. So what's going to go outside are these 3 things here. So I've got 3a squared, c squared. Now if I again just write down the first term, so I've got 6a squared b c cubed, but this is what I've got. So what I need to do is say, well, okay, I've got 3, but I want 6. So what do I have to multiply it by? I multiply it by 2. I've got a squared, but I want a squared, so that's absolutely fine. I need a b, so let's stick a b there. And I've also got c squared, but I want c cubed, so I need another c. Now moving on to the second term, so let me just get rid of all this. So moving on to the second term, I've got 18 a to the power 5 c squared. Now I've got 3, but I want 18, so what do I have to multiply 3 to get 18? Well, that's going to be 6. I've got a squared, but I want a to the power of 5, so how many more a's do I need? Well, I need 3 more. And I've got c squared and I want c squared, so that's absolutely fine. I don't need any more c's, so that can stay as it is. And then finally moving on to the last term, and let's go for yellow. So here I've got 15 a cubed b c to the power 6. So I've got 3, but I want 15. So what do I have to multiply 3 to get 15? Well, that's going to be 5. I've got a squared, but I want a cubed. So how many more a's do I need? Well, I need one more. I haven't got a b, but I need a b, so I need to stick a b there. And I've got c squared, but I want 6 of them. So how many more c's do I need? Well, I need 4 of them. And that there is my final answer. Now I will put some practice questions in the description below along with their answers for you to check your practice of each of these types of questions.